Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of This Week in History on the Four Lads Network. Incredibly, we've now got to mid-August. We're going to cover August 11 to August 17. And here with me yet again, Rangers Archives guru, Rangers history expert, my right-hand man, Stephen Miller. How are you, pal?
All right, Davey. No, good to see you, but I've had better Mondays.
Yeah. We're recording this in the day after Rangers have just lost to Hibs, so we're going to try and look back in a few good times in history to try and take our minds off the current trials and tribulations of Rangers. For those that haven't seen the show, simple idea: we go through the 7 upcoming days and look back in each of those 7 days in Rangers history for some event or player associated with it. And we're going to start with August the 11th. Because this podcast is going to go out on Tuesday, August 11th. We're back to 1974 when Stephen and I were both at our peak. Well, sort of. Some more than others.
Second year at high school, I think. So.
Okay, August 11th, 1974. Neil McCann was born in Greenock. Signed by Dick Advocaat in November 1998, he became a hugely important part of 2 treble-winning teams, one under Dick Advocaat, one under Alec McLeish, won a handful of medals. Neil McCann, what's your memories of Neil McCann then, Stephen?
Yeah, well, I think Advocaat was making sure he was going to try and sign good Scottish players just to show that we could do it rather than like just Dutch players. And Neil McCann was an excellent player for Rangers. Obviously, he maybe brought up as a Celtic supporter, but he gave his all for the team. Great cross-area ball, could score goals. Maybe suffered a bit from injuries during this period with us, but he would be a world beater in our team just now. That's what you could say.
Is there an argument we haven't had a better left winger since him?
I was thinking about that over the last couple of days, and I couldn't think of anybody. You know, there's nobody that could. I mean, he obviously had excellent players around him, which obviously helped. But his crossing of the ball and that was first class. Whether it would our forwards at the moment would shine with his service, but he was a terrific player. I suppose like all wingers, we expect him to be world beaters every week, but they're by nature they're the most inconsistent.
Yeah,
they're not the 7 and 8 out of 10 every week player that your steady fullbacks or your midfield players are. But look, he was a terrific player for Rangers, and in big games, he could also not just out wide, he could play through the centre as he did in a couple of famous occasions.
Yeah, no doubt we're going to get to that. I think that. He was the man of the match in the League Cup final. Remember, Gaza scored the 2 goals against Hearts.
He was, yeah.
He actually won the man of the match. He was outstanding, and I know that when Advocaat was sort of prepping to become the Rangers manager, that was one of the games he watched on video.
Yeah, and one of the games that he attended was in early '98, when a 2-each game where Albert scored late on to equalise. Yeah. And Neil McCann scored that day for Hearts, and I think he saw him that day as somebody who could fit into his team. Yeah,
but certainly, as you say, I think when he signed, there was a lot of grumblings about why he was signing a Celtic supporter. He soon get rid of that. I'll quickly give his stats, because I'll always give the stats in these things. 169 games, 67 of them as substitute, which I think maybe is something you mentioned. He had an awful lot of competition. When he was at Rangers, the likes of when Advocaat was there, Alberts could have played on the left-hand side.
There was Alberts and Van Bronckhorst.
Yeah.
They kind of players who obviously didn't play every week, but he still contributed massively to our trophy haul.
And then I suppose when you under McLeish, he had Lovenkrands, he had Avaladze. There was a lot of players that could have played wide left in a Rangers team back in those days. So I'll finish his stats. So that was 169 games, 102 starts, therefore, 26 goals, 3 league titles, 4 Scottish Cups, 2 League Cups, and an unused substitute in another League Cup final. And he also won a cup with Hearts, obviously, because he played in Hearts and beat us in 1998. So he's got a fist full of medals, hasn't he?
Yeah, and obviously the runners-up medal in 2009 with Falkirk.
Yes,
when he played the final against us, and could have scored twice that day. So glad he never.
But I think it's probably fair to say that even though he won all those trophies, he won all the medals, the first game everybody always thinks of when you talk about Neil McCann has to be the game at Parkhead in May 1999 when we needed a win to win the title.
Yes, very much so. That was and again, that was one of the games where Advocat decided to play him through the middle, and what a great decision that was.
It certainly was.
He was a thorn in the Celtic defence that night. It was a fantastic performance. Yeah.
So, courtesy of your absolutely brilliant Rangers Archive site, we've got video of one of the goals for that day. So the one we decided to show, I think, was the final salt into the wound, which was the third goal. Obviously, McCann had already opened the scoring. They had the player sent off. Advocat, Alberts had scored the penalty. We were kind of coasting in the second half, to be honest. But another goal was always going to be the icing in the cake, and Neil McCann scored it.
Which goes back over 100 years. Neil McCann. McCann is through here. He's past the keeper, and Neil McCann has clinched the championship for Rangers. It's 3-0. It's the magnificent McCann.
Yeah, his pace really has destroyed Celtic at times tonight. And I think it's Scott Marshall who was caught on the wrong side of him here. But there was still a lot of...
He was a brave man running towards the Celtic end, wasn't
he? Well, I think he got his bearings mixed up there, I think. So, but he knew where he was going. But
absolutely.
Obviously, Dallas wanted to keep him on the pitch there, so avoid any more coins hitting him.
Yeah, what a day. I've not got a lot of regrets, but one regret was I couldn't get a ticket for that game for love nor money.
Yeah, we were the same. Me and my mate couldn't get one. We ended up watching it in the Hayburn Vaults in Partick. And then we got a taxi back over to Ibrox for them coming back because they came back to the ground,
So that's the game most we talk about. I think there's another couple of games I'd like to throw in. You can maybe throw in others, but I thought he was brilliant against PSV at Eindhoven at Ibrox the night we beat them 4-1.
Yep.
Rangers really well that night. He scored that night. He played really well. And he came on at half-time the day we beat Dunfermline 6-1 to win the league the last day of the season. Although we'd scored 3 goals, the pressure was really on the second half because Celtic actually at one point had scored more than we had.
They were ahead. They were 3. I think De Boer scored just after they'd scored because they were ahead of us. And again, he made the 3 goals, didn't he, in the second half?
Exactly. It was his cross for De Boer, it was his cross for Thompson, and then he got brought down for the penalty.
Yep, absolutely. So great. We needed him that day just to get the goals. Again, 6 different scorers on a day you win the league is some going.
Yeah. So and then obviously for financial reasons he was sold that summer. His last game was the cup final against Dundee.
Yeah. Again, when he set up the winning goal for Amoruso. Right. So and then left. Was it Southampton he went to? I never bothered with Rangers players' careers after they leave Rangers, and just to me it's all about when they play with us. Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting in any way that he should be a candidate for the Hall of Fame or anything, but if you look at just the numbers and nothing else, he was an important player in 2 trebles, all kinds of successes, big European nights, scored important goals, including league championship winning goal at Parkhead.
Yep.
If he's not a Hall of Fame member, I'm not saying he should be, he certainly is somebody who will be remembered for a long, long time for what he contributed to Rangers.
Yeah, it's definitely worthy of consideration for it. I'm not quite sure about the full criteria that's required. Length of service and contribution to the club, but 169 games and all the medals that you spoke about. It's not too bad a career he had.
No. So Neil McCann is the first subject for today's show. That was August 11th, 1974. He was born. We're going to go to August the 12th. I'm going to go back to 1966. This time it's a signing. Rangers signed Dave Smith from Aberdeen for a fee of around £50,000. Quite a bit of money in 1966. He'd been a regular at Aberdeen for quite a number of years, left-sided player. I think you would probably call him a defensive midfield player or centre-back these days.
Yes, right.
So Dave Smith, he was one of the Rangers regulars just when I first started going to see Rangers. I presume you'd done the same for yourself?
Yes, no, I remember him in the years prior to like Barcelona and etc. But all the late 60s, obviously well covered in your new book. He was an excellent kind of left half, inside left kind of player. Wasn't blessed with great pace, but he had a beautifully cultured left foot. Obviously, kind of maybe similar in the mould to what Rangers had previously with Baxter. I'm not saying he was anywhere as good as Baxter was, but I didn't see Baxter in his first spell with Rangers. But he kind of played in the same kind of role, but again maybe suffered a wee bit comparison-wise at that time. But everyone knew he was a cultured player, but maybe again he was just there at a time when we weren't very successful. Yeah,
because I'm looking at his stats as I do. 301 games, 13 goals. He's actually got 2 winners' medals. 1972 European Cup Winners' Cup final, which we'll get to in a minute. The only domestic winners' medal that he has is the 1973 Scottish Cup final. We didn't actually play in it. He was an unused
substitute. That was the only other medal he got, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sitting thinking, there can't be very many players that the only thing they actually won was a European trophy.
Yeah, I don't think there is anybody else. I think because obviously Alfie Cohen won the League Cup medal. He was the other one I was thinking about, but everyone else was there when the side did win things.
I mean, not even Scottish. I don't know if there can be very many.
Anyway, and to play 300 first team games for Rangers and have one winners medal that he contributed to the final is a crazy stat.
I suppose he's unlucky that when he played in a League Cup final we lost, he played in a European Cup Winners' Cup final we lost, played in a Scottish Cup final we lost. Then he missed this 1970 League Cup because he'd broken his leg.
He broke his leg, yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose he was unlucky in a way, but I was going to say, would he even have played in Barcelona if Ronnie McKinnon hadn't broke his leg?
No, I don't think he would have. He wasn't in the team up until the game in November in Lisbon where McKinnon broke his leg, and that's when he was brought in. And so to only play like half the season and be the footballer of the year just shows you the quality and the way that he played. Obviously, he didn't play as a left-sided midfielder. He played as a sweeper. Yeah, and obviously the role was perfect for him. As I said earlier, he wasn't blessed with pace, but he could read a game really well. Yeah. And he just told Derek Johnson, "You go and attack the ball, and I'll be behind you."
Yeah. He's the first Rangers sweeper I remember. I don't remember him ever playing sweeper before him. Well, I didn't really remember much before him, but there wasn't any sweepers after. Sandy Jardine maybe when he moved back and was more a kind of sweeping type centre back.
That was later in his career, but not at the time. No, there hadn't been. Rangers hadn't used a kind of sweeper.
But I'm just going to put his picture up for younger folk that maybe try to figure out who Dave Smith is. But that's Dave Smith there. So there's probably or definitely the most iconic team in Rangers history thus far, because they're the only team to win a European trophy. Dave Smith's just to the right of Peter McCloy, the goalkeeper at the back there. And it is fair to say that even though he came into the team not at the start of that run, it was kind of for more or less the quarterfinals onwards. He stamped his name all over that European win, didn't he? He was the captain in the semi-final against Bayern Munich, and he was the man of the match in the final. Yeah,
great performances. But the whole season, even in the league games where we weren't that successful, he just kind of blossomed, you know. It was just because we'd never seen him play in that position before. And obviously, Willie Waddle's seen something that,
Yeah.
you know, he goes, he'd be able to play there, and he'll be my man. So again, you remember, we didn't have big squads or anything like that. You know, like it might have been that, you know, he could have put John Gregg back beside Colin Jackson at the time, but they went with Dave Smith. So
yeah, kind of glad they did.
Very much. He broke his leg twice with Rangers, didn't he? He broke his leg on 2 occasions during his career, and one of them was in a training ground where he tackled Willie Henderson and broke his leg.
Yeah, that's when training was training. Something that maybe surprised me a little bit, because I'm just too young to probably can remember him all that well. I did see him a few times, but it's a wee bit in the mist of time for me. I was a wee bit young, but certainly folk a little bit older than me, a lot of them really raved about how good a footballer he was.
Yeah, and but see, obviously, like yourself, I was starting to go to the games. My first game was 65. I can't remember really, but from 67 onwards, I was going fairly regularly. And I was thinking back on it, and I'm going, he wasn't one that stood out to me in the team. You know, you had your Willie Johnsons and Colin Steens, and they were the ones that we kind of took the eye. You know, but it just he was a steady player. You know, obviously we bought 2 Smiths that summer, didn't we? Him and Alex Smith.
Yeah.
So, and they were supposed to be the midfield geniuses that were going to take us forward, and it never quite worked out.
So, only 2 caps for Scotland, which surprised me a little bit. Must admit, he won one with Aberdeen and one with Rangers.
Yeah, both against Holland, I believe.
Yeah, both against Holland. Yeah, seems kind of low for a guy that could excel in the European stage. You would have thought a player like that, was really suited to international football, but for whatever reason, Scotland managers didn't pick him.
Yeah, I think if you remember, Scotland had pretty good sides, even though they didn't qualify. There was a lot of good Anglos, Scots that they were playing at the time. So it was much the same with like Alec MacDonald. You know, in Scotland, you know, it's just a kind of same thing.
John McLean hardly get captain Scotland, the Rangers as well. So, but anyway, Dave Smith, Barcelona Bear, one of only 11 Rangers players to win a European trophy, one of only 4 Rangers players to play in to start 2 European finals. Him, John Gregg, Sandy Jardine, Willie Johnson. And immortal.
Yes.
For as long as we've only got 1 European trophy to our name, those 11 will stay immortal forever, won't they?
Forever, yes. And of course he still goes to Ibrox every week, you know, which is fantastic to see, you know.
Absolutely.
I've met him on a couple of occasions. Very nice, very humble person.
Yeah. I've actually met his son. I've not met Dave Smith. I've met his son writes books.
Paul?
Well.
Yeah, I know Paul. Yeah.
So Dave Smith, Barcelona Bear, signed August the 12th, 1966. Going to go to the 90s now. Maybe that's one that a few more folk will remember. August the 13th, 1994. On the opening league Saturday of the new season, Rangers defeat Motherwell 2-1 in a match that saw the home competitive debut of Danish winger Brian Laudrup. No, there was a player, Stephen. There was a player.
I don't really remember him. Did he have a good career?
Wow.
Before
I actually talk about Laudrup himself, if I just talk about that summer, the season before we nearly won the treble when we lost the final to Dundee United. But we hadn't been very good that season.
If you say now that we were dreadful that season, you know, like people go, you know, they almost won the treble, but the football wasn't great with a ton of injuries caused by the amount of games we played in 92-93 season.
Yeah.
So
it's incredible. The season before, we actually only won half our league games. We only won 22 out of 44 league games. So Walter went out and he bought what appeared to be 2 outstanding top-class European pedigree players. He brought in Laudrup. It was from Fiorentina, although he played for AC Milan the season before it. He won the European Cup. And Basil Bolly, the Marseille centre-back, French international centre-back. it's probably accurate to say the two of them had very contrasting Rangers careers. Bolly never lived up to expectations. Laudrup, well, you tell me, where does Laudrup sit in your all-time Rangers players?
Oh, he's got to be right at the top or very near the top. You know, like for me, is Gascoigne and Cooper and Laudrup are the three best football players I've seen play for Rangers, and I don't split them because they were different types of players. You know, so Cooper I think had the most skill. Gaz had probably the most influence in games. He could control the game, and Laudrup was just special. Just again, it was just phenomenal to watch. I couldn't believe Rangers had a player like him, and that was obviously the Motherwell game we're talking about. Is the first time we'd seen him at Ibrox. We'd played in the pre-season friendlies and things like that, and we'd lost away to EK Athens just a couple of days before when we were ripped apart basically, and we're lucky to get away with 2-0 if Andy Gorham hadn't been in for him. So there was a kind of maybe a wee bit of unsure about how good he was or anything like this, because he hadn't really shown up well in the EK Athens game. But after 90 minutes, even Alan McInally was raving about him on the sports scene afterwards, saying, he played with Bayern München in München,
So I'll show the game just now, the goal just in a wee minute. The team that started that day: Andy Gorham, Neil Murray, David Robertson, Richard Gough, Basil Bolly, Dave McPherson, Ian Durant, Stuart McCall, Ali McCoist, Mark Hateley, Brian Laudrup. And the used substitute was Duncan Ferguson, who come on. That was the season Walter went to three at the back. That was the first league game we played three at the back. There was three centre-halves in that team.
Yeah.
And what struck me when I looked at that, then I looked at the rest of the season, was how it changed quite quickly. So if you go through that team, Neil Murray dropped out of the team and hardly played again that season. Dave McPherson ended up going to Hearts, and Alan McLaren came in
in October.
Ian Durant went to Everton on loan, and Duncan Ferguson, who were about to see scoring the goal, went to Everton on loan, but he never came back. He was gone. McCoy got injured and hardly played the rest of the season. He only played a handful of games. So although that team started the season, it wasn't the team that played for most of it.
No.
And but the one constant there was that season was the utter brilliance of Brian Laudrup. It was just
he was great in that first game, and he only get better. So
I'm not going to like yourself. I find it difficult to say who's the best player you've seen. But what I will say about Laudrup, you talked earlier about Neil McCann. Wingers aren't known for their consistency.
Exactly.
I think Laudrup was the most consistently brilliant Rangers player I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. Hard to disagree with that.
And on that first game, he set up a goal for Mark Hateley. Motherwell equalised, and then with 3 minutes to go, he done this.
Running by Laudrup. There could be something on here. Duncan Ferguson stays left. Here's Ferguson! And Duncan Ferguson scores for Rangers! Well, what drama here at Ibrox Stadium. 3 minutes to go. A great chance for Motherwell at one end of the field. Brilliant play by Laudrup. Running forward.
Two things that jumped out at me apart from the brilliance of Brian Laudrup there. One is how many folk were still there with 3 minutes to go when it was one each.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Before the subway loyal.
And the second thing was that goalkeeper's actually Celtic's goalkeeping coach now.
Yes, Stevie Woods.
Yeah.
Yep.
We need here. But Laudrup. So I've got his stats. 150 games, 44 goals, 3 league titles, 1 Scottish Cup, 1 League Cup, Hall of Fame member. When you say numbers like that, it doesn't do him justice.
It doesn't do it justice, no, it doesn't. no. I would have thought he would have played more than 150 times, for a start. But obviously, he was just in every game. There's very few games you can look back on and say Laudert didn't perform. I know. Some people might say in his last season, he was kind of, when his thoughts were, where am I going to be playing next? He kind of maybe dropped the ball a bit, but he was still by far our best player.
Yeah, he is. For me, and I'm sure over the course of this series, as we go through the weeks and months ahead, we'll keep coming up with games, and we'll end up talking about how brilliant Brian Laudert was.
Yeah, I think that will be very true.
Yeah. So anyway, August the 13th, 1994, you could say was the first day that the Rangers supporters got a glimpse of what they were going to enjoy for the next 4 years. The utter brilliance of Brian Laudert. And that will take us to August turn my page, August the 14th, 2020. Although this is going to sound recent, it's actually not, because unfortunately, August the 14th, 2020 was the death of one of my favourite players as a boyhood Rangers supporter, the great Rangers in Scotland defender Tom Forsyth, who died on August the 14th, 2020 at the age of 1971. I'm fortunate enough to be able to say I saw Tom Forsyth's entire Rangers career. I'm sure you're the same, Stephen.
Yes, I did. Yes, indeed. From his debut at Fir Park in '72, and till was it 1982 where he was forced to retire with his knee injury.
I think the last time he had a little cameo appearance in his testimonial in 1983 against Swansea. That's the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
Didn't Derek Ferguson play when he was 15?
I was, but it was. I always remember that with sadness, simply because of the poor crowd that was there that day. Really, really, really sad that the support didn't turn out. But we were going through a time where there was a lot of testimonials, but we had a lot of long-serving players. So
yeah. So as you say, he signed in 1972. Was it Joe Wallace's first signing? I'm trying to think.
Yes,
he was the first, wasn't he?
Yep.
October 1972, £40,000, and he was a midfield player. He was a midfield player with Motherwell.
Yep, centre mid.
He actually played a lot more for Motherwell than I realised. He played the guts of 200 games for them.
Yeah, he'd been playing there for quite a few years. Yeah.
But anyway, that first season he came in, 72-73, he played 27 times that season, and incredibly, Rangers won 25 and drew the other 2.
They didn't lose these first season, that's right. Yeah, yeah. We'd lost their only game until before he signed us. But he was, and he played midfield to start with. He came as a midfielder, and obviously he played number 8. Even when he was playing at centre back, he played number 8. But he would the first few games he played in midfield.
Yeah. So 72-73 as a midfielder, as you say, Rangers finished 1 point behind after being miles behind at Christmas. They almost
got there.
Didn't quite do it, but reached the cup final where they played Celtic. Now this is particularly important for me because it was my first ever Rangers Celtic game and it was my first ever cup final. So it will always be special in my head. And what a game it was. SFA centenary, so it was the 100 years of the Scottish Cup.
Yep.
Celtic had a good team. I'm not going to pretend. Celtic had a good team at the time. Kenny Dalglish scored, made it 1-0 for Celtic. Derek Parlane, who we've had on the Four Lads podcast interviewing him, he equalised on his birthday. Alfie Cohen put us 2-1 up right after half time. He would later play for Celtic, but I'll try and remember him as the last player and scorer of that goal. John Gregg then made save of the season. Unfortunately, he wasn't the goalkeeper, so Celtic got a penalty and George Connolly equalised. 2 each. What was it? 21 minutes to go.
60 minutes, I think it was. 60 minutes.
And then Tom Forsyth scored his first goal for Rangers. And this is it.
Score 2-all. Connolly covering. Touched it.
he celebrates. He celebrated the way I would probably celebrate if that was me.
Yeah. I don't think he knew what to do. Yeah, what a great memory that is. I wasn't at the game. I wasn't allowed to go to Rangers Celtic games at the time. My mum and didn't want me and my dad going to the Old Firm game, especially after what had happened, a couple of years previously. And that's so I didn't go to my first game till I was 15, and I didn't see us at Hampden against Celtic till about I think it was the Drybrook Cup final in '79.
Right.
It was the first time I'd ever. So it's just memories. I remember sitting and listening to it on the radiogram, as they called it at the time. Sit and listen to it in front of that. Nowadays I couldn't listen to a game on the radio. You've got to see what's happening. So.
And so probably the greatest ever finish from about 18 inches out that day.
Perfectly placed.
But he wasn't a midfield player for much longer after that. He get moved back into
he get moved back into centre defence. I think it was earlier in the year. I think Wallace just wanted a bit more steel.
Yeah.
In the centre of defence, and while Dave Smith was a culture player that we talked about earlier, he maybe wasn't the kind of. If you know Joe Wallace's character, then he was maybe looking for somebody with a bit more blood and guts, as they say, and Tom obviously had that in spades.
Yeah, so he formed this defensive partnership with Colin Jackson, which then was the backbone of the Rangers defence for the next number of years, wasn't it? And we won a couple of trebles with them. Them as the backbone of the team. Won a league championship first, then won a couple of trebles, won lots of cups. With the two of them as I say, this backbone in the centre of the defence. Take no prisoners. Both of them out and out defenders. Just guys that won tackles, won headers, won the ball, cleared the
ball. That's it. Somebody will clear it. Jackson was a great marker as well. He was good at marking players, and they never got an inch. And Forsyth was a terrific foil for him. Yeah,
great tackler though. The first thing you think of Forsyth, isn't it, is how good a tackler he was.
Tackler he was, yeah. You know yourself, if he played in today's football, he would be he'd be struggling not to get booked or worse every week. But he was a whole. That was when football was football, as they say. And I mean, him and Jackson. I mean, they weren't the most silky of players. They were good, really good players. But when we won the treble in '76, we'd 18 clean sheets out of 36 league games. Which is fantastic. If you got anywhere near that now, apart from 2021 season, what a fantastic record that is. And we only lost, I think, 18 goals in the whole league season. So they were terrific.
So Tom Forsyth stats, as always do, 326 games, which I thought was going to be more, but he did miss quite a bit through injury in his last few seasons, didn't he? So 326 games, 6 goals, by far the most famous we've already seen. 3 league titles, 4 Scottish Cups, 2 League Cups, 22 caps for Scotland, member of the Rangers Hall of Fame. And for me, I think there's been very few better Rangers central defenders since. Butcher and Goff, everyone always talk about them as the pinnacle of modern Rangers centre backs. But in my time, behind Butcher and Goff, Tom Forsyth must be right up there in the discussion about who was the most dependable, reliable, wholehearted ball-winning centre half that we've had.
Yeah, very much so. And it was just unfortunate with injuries. I think that it definitely slowed him down in his later years. But that period in the mid-70s was from 74 probably to 79. He was just phenomenal.
I totally agree. And I'll throw in probably 2 other Tom Forsyth memories. One for Scotland, the tackle on Mike Shannon against England towards the end when he, from behind him, he managed to
hook his leg round,
all off him just as he was about to shoot. Make sure you're a bit of a national hero. Played well for Scotland, big Tom Forsyth. And 1975 League Cup final when we beat Celtic 1-0. Iman marked Kenny Dalglish. And I thought he was the man of the match that day. He was the best player.
And you knew how well he'd done because all Celtic supporters did was moan about it. He put Dalglish out the game. So
so for me, for those too young to have seen Tom Forsyth, I just think that's a proper Rangers centre half, and
just a proper Rangers
when
player.
we talk about what we want in the Rangers team now at the back, I just wish we could find the modern equivalent of somebody like him, a clean tackling, ball winning.
Yeah,
no nonsense.
You know what I always found strange was, see, when you seen him on the park, he would go after anything. He would fight for his teammates and that. And then you heard him being interviewed, and he was the most soft-spoken, gentle person you'd ever hear.
Yeah, an absolute gentleman. So, unfortunately, August the 14th, 2020 is remembering when the day Tom Forsyth passed away. And he's somebody who, certainly my generation of Rangers supporters will never forget. I'm going to go to August the 15th, back to the 1990s, 1991. Rangers signed Scotland international midfielder Stuart McCall from Everton for a fee of around £1.5 million. Just before I ask you your memories of Stuart McCall, just to put a little bit of context, the summer of 1991, Walter Smith had just gone into his first full season, and he had this problem because he inherited a team with lots of non-Scots in it, and the 3 foreigner rule was coming in Europe, when you could only play 3 non-nationals in your 11 in European football. So Walter straight away had to bring more Scots into the Rangers first team squad. He brought in David Robertson, Andy Gorham, Matt Walters left, Chris Woods left, Terry Hurlock left, and he just sold Trevor Stephen to Marseille for a lot of money. And at the time, we linked it together, but he wasn't really replacing Trevor Stephen, but he signed just at the same time as Trevor Stephen was leaving.
Everybody thought that was a kind of straight replacement. You know, and it's not quite in the quite the same kind of type of player. Eh? But I can't remember. I didn't know that much about him. Obviously, he'd scored for Scotland in the World Cup the year before, but never really, had him down as like a top player that we maybe would go and sign. It was I remember it being quite a shock when we bought him.
First time I remember him actually was when he scored for Everton in the cup final against
twice, 2 goals.
But Everton didn't have a team that I watched that often, so I didn't know too much about him either, apart from his Scotland performances.
Yeah.
But for Scotland, he was one of these little terriers in midfield that was nipping at the ankles and winning the ball.
Small red-headed midfield player. We've had a few of them over the years.
And so he was at Rangers until 1998, so he had 7 years at the club. How would you describe that 7 years of Stuart McCall?
He was the engine of the team. He did everybody's running. If you're talking about nowadays when they say you've got a high block and all this and put pressure on high out of park, he put pressure on all over the park. Every blade of grass, every game. I don't know. He must have been the most fit player that's played for Rangers in the last year. Just the amount of running he did, and he could play as well. He was he could pass, and he wasn't a great goal scorer, but he contributed important goals and sometimes in important games. But he made the others play. He allowed them to play. It was another one of our favourite players, Ali McDonald. He didn't have the same amount of goals in him, but he was that kind of box to box player, and a guy who you didn't see much of during the game, but I think every other player recognised his worth to the team.
Yeah, I think he's one of the players that you didn't realise how much he'd done for the team until he wasn't there.
Yeah,
you get these players that they just do the job so well that you kind of half blind to it.
He was one of the 7 and 8 out of 10 every week that I spoke about earlier on, and every week he was in. Again, he was a really consistent player. Very few bad games, very few mistakes that cost us or anything like that. So. Yeah, he did a great 7 years for Rangers. Yeah. Obviously, I think injuries again. Yeah. It's a thing with Rangers and Rangers players that we sign, that the amount of games, maybe the intensity or whatever. But the last like maybe season and a half, I think it caught up with him.
But certainly, for me, there's the 2 different Walter Smith teams, if you like. There's the one at the start, which was 4-4-2, Hateway McCoist up front, get the ball forward to them, and the midfield was more ball winners. Ian Ferguson and
Ian
Stuart
Ferguson.
McCall in the engine room. It was
a Nigel Spackman
yeah.
to start with, and yeah.
And then later on, when we had the Loudrup Gascoigne era, McCall was Paul Gascoigne's minder.
Yeah.
For whatever way of putting it, he was the guy that won the ball, gave it to Gascoigne, allowed Gascoigne to go forward because he would just
move it
in case he lost it.
Yeah.
He was such a huge part of two completely different kinds of Rangers team.
And that
two really successful ones.
Yeah, and we kind of supplemented the midfield at the time with fullbacks, and we had Craig Moore in midfield, and Alec Cleland and things like that.
So Stuart McCall starts though. 265 games, and I think that kind of alludes again to he must have missed quite a few games through injury, because for 7 years that's not as much as you thought it would be.
No.
20 goals. There's a question mark whether he won 5 or 6 league titles. I think he definitely won 5. I don't know if he played enough games in the 9 in a row season to get a 6th one. He didn't play 10 games, so
I think he played 9. So I would say no for that one. That's
I know, but he might have got a medal. That's what I mean.
Yes,
I don't
that's
know.
what we don't know. Nobody knows.
It's either 5 or 6 league titles. 3 Scottish Cups, 2 League Cups, 40 caps for Scotland, Hall of Fame member. Partly a hugely enjoyable and successful time to be a Rangers supporter, wasn't it?
Oh, well, it's probably obviously the best sustained period that I've lived through in all my years. So,
I think a season that a lot of people would put near the top of their favourites, if they were old enough to remember it, season 1992-93, when we went 44 games undefeated, we won the treble, we almost got to the Champions League final, went undefeated in the whole season in Europe. The first trophy that season was won by beating Aberdeen in the League Cup final, and it was an unlikely scorer of the first goal that day, wasn't it? Because this is it.
It was indeed.
Stephen White. McCall plays it to McCoy, to Durant. Some lovely close play here by Rangers. Stuart McCall for a blunder in the Aberdeen defence.
Yeah. You seen that goalkeeper?
Yeah, they just brought in the pass back rule that year, and obviously Snelders couldn't pick it up. Roy Aitken was very happy with it. What a shame, eh? So
yeah, but Stuart McCall wasn't known for his goals, but there you go. He did score in a winning cup final, so
can be bad, eh? Can be bad.
Exactly.
And again, that season, we had so many players who played virtually the whole season, and they were all at the top of their form. John Brown, Ian Ferguson, and Stuart McCall was one of them as well.
Yeah.
Andy Gorham.
Yeah.
Goff.
So, the 1990s were a great time. Stuart McCall had played more than his part in that for me. He was a absolutely vital part of the engine that drove 9 in a row.
Absolutely.
And he was signed on August the 15th, 1991, for what is now the bargain fee, I would say, of £1.5 million.
Yep.
So we're going to go to August the 16th, which is my birthday. So what I'm going to do a special for my birthday for August the 16th. I was going to at one point do John Gregg's 35-yard goal against Motherwell in 1974. 75, sorry, because that was my birthday and I was told he'd done it for me. But I'm going to go back a long time. We always do an old one, and there's a great story associated with August the 16th. 1906. 1906, Stephen. My God, right, okay.
Yeah. Just a bairn.
You're a historian for this. Rangers beat Celtic 4-2 at Ibrox in a testimonial match for the Scotland international forward, Finlay Speedy. So I'm going to put the Rangers team of 1906. This is actually 1905-06. I haven't got one for 06-07. So Finlay Speedy is right in the centre of the back row. For me, he looks as if he's been photoshopped onto the back of the picture. He's kind of standing at the back. They're not really in between two players. It's his testimonial, and he was a good player for Rangers. He won league titles. He won the Scottish Cup.
Great goal. Scored a lot of goals.
Scored a lot of goals. But the story's not actually going to be about him, even though it was his testimonial game. The story's going to be about the second player in that back row. The second one, a player called Tom Sinclair. And I'm going to get to why that is just now. So
yeah, that's why I sent you that picture with Sinclair in it, because I knew that this would be the story.
So the testimonial game for Celtic, a lot of people these days would say playing testimonials against Celtic, but that was the most common.
That was the norm, yeah.
That was who we always played for them because they get the best crowds. In the first half of the game, the Celtic goalkeeper, a player called Davy Adams, cut his hand quite badly on a nail that was protruding out of a goalpost.
That's right, yeah.
And it was so bad he had to go off. And it was lacerated, it needed stitched, and he needed hospitalised. And because the game was at Ibrox, Rangers were the home team and took the responsibility for this injury having taken place during the testimonial game. And they offered Celtic their reserve goalkeeper until Davy Adams was available to play again.
Correct.
Now, Tom Sinclair, who had been Rangers' first choice goalkeeper in the couple of seasons before it. Even phone going.
Do apologise.
Tom Sinclair had been Rangers' first choice goalkeeper the first couple of seasons before it. He played in the Scottish Cup final with lost. He played in a league decider against Celtic with lost. He only ever won the Charity Cup. But he had lost his place in the team by 1906. A new goalkeeper had been signed, Alec Newbigin. So he was the one that got punted out to Celtic. Tom Sinclair went to Celtic, even though he was a Rangers player, until this Davy Adams was fit again. And he was a revelation.
Sadly, yeah.
Celtic played 6 league games with Tom Sinclair of Rangers in their goal. They won all 6 of them and he kept 6 clean sheets. The Glasgow Cup, they won the quarter-final, they won the semi-final. Again, Tom Sinclair in goal, clean sheets. So he played 8 games, hadn't conceded a goal, won all 8 of them. And his last game for Celtic, before Davy Adams came back into the team, was the Glasgow Cup final against Third Lanark. He finally conceded a goal, but Celtic won 3-2. So Tom Sinclair of Rangers won a winner's medal for Celtic.
Correct.
He then came back to Rangers. I don't know what kind of reception he got within Ibrox after playing so well for Celtic. But he still couldn't break into the first team. So he played in the reserves. And the reserves won what was called the Second 11 Cup, the Reserve Cup, with Tom Sinclair in goal. So in that season, he therefore won a cup with Celtic, and he won a cup with Rangers. And that's not enough. In the early months of 1907, Newcastle United were sitting top of the English League, and their goalkeeper, a guy called Jimmy Lawrence, got injured, and they wanted an experienced backup just until he came back. And they bought Tom Sinclair from Rangers. So he went down to Newcastle. He played 3 league games for them, won all 3 of them. And Newcastle ended up winning the league. So he won the Glasgow Cup with Celtic, he won a cup with Rangers, and he won the English Championship, all in the one season.
Crazy. Yeah. Again, it's just another great wee story from our past that, you know, is there for that. Nowadays it would be impossible to come up with anything like that. But these things that's what happened in the days. You know, it's great.
And I think it all starts because at that time Rangers and Celtic were actually quite friendly with each other.
Yeah, I think they knew that they could make money off each other at the time. I mean, like, so Celtic's greatest ever goal scorer was Jimmy McGrory, and Rangers played in his testimonial, and we beat them 4-0, which was great, you know. So that was a bit later on in the late 20s, but so it was even up till then we were still playing testimonials. Can you imagine if Rangers had a testimonial for Tavernier and we invited Celtic to be their opponents? You know, we need to go to Australia to play.
I think I'll try not to imagine that in truth. Yeah. But so Tom Sinclair,
the goalkeeper that kept him out, Alex Newbigin.
Yeah.
When Rangers played their centenary in 1973 against Arsenal, Alex Newbigin was the oldest living Rangers player. He was 100 at the time, and came along to Ibrox that night. He was introduced by Willie Waddle.
Yeah. But Tom Sinclair only ever won the Charity Cup, only played in the first team for a couple of years. He's an absolute footnote. And as far as Rangers history, he's a little footnote. Yeah, he's done something that no other player did before him and will ever do again. It's a completely unique story.
Absolutely, yep. And again, just a great story.
Anyway, I still wish he hadn't won the Glasgow Cup with Celtic.
Yeah, and he should have let in a few more goals, but hey.
Yeah. So that was August the 16th, 1906. We're going to finish coming more or less right up to date. So August the 17th, we're going to go just to 2024, just a couple of years ago. Rangers defeat St Johnstone 2-0 in the League Cup in their temporary home of Hampden, while Ibrox remains unavailable due to improvement work in the Copeland Road stand not being completed in time for the new season. Do you remember that little weird start to that season when we had to go to Hampden?
Yeah, it was a weird start, but and obviously, like, it wasn't until just before the start that we realised they weren't going to be playing at Ibrox. Did it affect us greatly in the grand scheme of things? We played 3 domestic games there, 2 league, 1 League Cup, and we scored 10 goals and lost won all 3 games. The 2 league games, the crowds were 48,000. Whether that was kind of,
I think
it was up a wee bit with season ticket, but again, the St Johnstone game was live on TVs and not included in the season package. And obviously, we played Dynamo Kiev in the European Cup, or the champion. Actually, European Cup. That's showing my age. The Champions League qualifier, and that was the only game that we lost. And obviously, refereeing decisions. So to me, while it was inconvenient and it wasn't great for the supporters and that, it didn't, like, we didn't end up 6 points behind in the league and chasing.
No,
So
it was just one of the things. It was just another sign of the times.
It was an annoyance rather than.
We got the off-field stuff just completely wrong, and we ended up having to go to Hampden. And a lot of supporters, because of their attitude towards the SFA,
Yes, of course,
they just didn't want to go there. And although you're right in terms of the 3 domestic we won all 3 domestic games. The atmosphere inside Hampden was nothing like what the atmosphere would have been, especially the Kiev game. Which the number of empty seats inside Hampden for that Kiev game was ridiculous that night.
Yeah, and I know they gave the crowd as late 30s, thousands, but again, it didn't seem like that. And it's probably a night where we needed the support to be right on. I mean, if you think back to Dynamo Kiev in '87 at Ibrox, and probably the loudest, and then you compare it to what it was like at Hampden, it was totally different.
Yeah. But the other thing I was going to talk about, I'll show the goal shot in a minute, but I was there that night and the crowd was giving us 23,000, and I genuinely thought it was way less than that. Yeah. Way less than that. It looked to me, it was lucky if it was 15, if I'm honest. But I was going to talk about the team that played that night, because it's only 2 years ago. So it's only 2 years. So Butland, Tavernier, Propper, Suter, Jefty, Sterling, Diamandi, Dowell, Cherney, Danilo, Matondo. Talk about how times can change.
Shivers.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but no, it's just a bit different now. I'll tell you, I would have Cherney back in a minute, but
yeah, absolutely. But it was a summer of downsizing, wasn't it? So
yeah,
off the field, we took our eye off the ball with the Copeland Road stand thing, and we ended up at Hampden, and that created all the discontent. But at the same time, if I look at the changes we made on the pitch, so the likes of a lot of players went out of contract, didn't they? So Ryan Jack went out of contract, Lundstrom, Roof, Barisic. So there was all these guys for the 55 season disappeared. And then Goldson gets sold for not a lot of money. Wright gets sold for not a lot. So there's another 2 players for the 55 season going away.
Was Kent away before that? The season before that, yeah.
Before that. Cantwell gets sold. Davis went out on loan. Cifuentes went out on loan. who did we bring in to replace all these guys? So Connor Barron, Insiala and Kelly all get signed for nothing. Cherny came in on loan. Casemiro came in for on loan. Cortez came in on loan with an obligation to buy. Diamandi was made permanent. Bajrami, Jefty and Igamani were the only ones bought for money.
Yeah. Yes.
Talk about a downside.
Yeah, and it's obviously I think Clement was up against it at that. I think he knew he had a kind of understanding that it's going to be difficult, but it was just a sign of the times. It's times that we've seen too often. Yeah.
So we did say we'll cover the good and the bad times in this post. So here were the goals from that night.
First one was a bit controversial, eh?
Yeah, I was going to say, for those that don't remember the first goal, actually it got disallowed in VAR, showed that it was actually a perfectly good goal.
Yeah.
So anyway, here they are.
As he won it back, now Dessers, and the free kick will go against Dessers, who rifles the ball into the net. He doesn't know.
Opportunity there.
Exactly the man that Craig Levein would have wanted that to fall to. Dessers now leaves it for McCausland to finish it. What a calm finish.
And at the time of recording this, the goal scorer of the second goal is one of the few that's actually still at the club.
He is, yeah. Maybe not for much longer, but yeah, as you say, at this time he is. Yeah.
So that season ended up with, defeat by Queen's Park. We were out the league by Christmas, out by Boxing Day. We were miles behind by Boxing Day. We beat Queen 1-0. But you don't think that the Hampden thing at the start had that big an impact on it? But I think what had the big impact was that downsizing I just talked about.
Yeah, the downsizing was far more of an effect than playing at Hampden for three games. You know, we have played at Hampden before in the league, and when Ibrox was getting redeveloped, etc. So
I remember we played Celtic there a couple of times, didn't we?
Played Celtic.
When the stand was getting built. Yeah.
Yep.
Although I think you went and found some really old historic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I was just thinking. I was going through some research for something or another. I was wasting my time when I found out that in 1903-04 Rangers played Morton at Capello in the league. I think it was August, September time, and then 4 weeks later it was a return league fixture. They didn't, and in those days they didn't always play league. Like the first 18 games away, and then the next 18 games against the opponents. They were quite close together sometimes when they played against each other. So it was less than a month later we were due to play them again at Ibrox. But on the day that we were meant to play them, Ibrox was hosting the Glasgow Cup final. So instead of Rangers saying, well, we'll move the day or whatever, we decided to play our home league game against Morton at Capello, which wouldn't be unheard of. So we played our both league games at Capello in the one season, and it counted as our home fixture. We did win, but which was good. But so it's something again that's happened in the dark and distant past. But can you imagine the fans just now?
Brilliant. That's the just to show that. So I think I'm having some connection problems. So I'm going to stop us there before my internet drops completely. I think it's me. A great wee story to finish with though, and just to show you that us playing home games or somewhere else isn't particularly new. We've been doing it for a long time. Stephen, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much again, mate.
I'll just mention one thing. We talked a couple of weeks ago about when we were doing a feature on Terry Butcher, and one of the old quiz questions is who scored the most goals against Rangers when Graham Souness was the manager, and the answer is Terry Butcher. Well, it is half right. I went and checked it yesterday, and he scored 6 own goals during Souness's tenure as manager. But John Robertson of Hearts also scored 6 goals for Hearts against Rangers in the same period, 4 of them penalties. So if you're ever asked the question, who scored the most goals against Rangers during Souness's reign, the answer is joint Terry Butcher and John Robertson. So hope that clears it up.
Fantastic. So not only does this podcast give you all these things, facts for the past that settles quiz arguments as well. Fantastic. Anyway, brilliant. Thanks very much, Stephen. Really appreciate you coming on again. Just to finish by thanking our sponsors, CBD Oil Scotland, LBJ Consultants, Metaclad Ltd, Candid, Elite Scooters, Aesthetics Lounge by Sharon, and Denhay. Hopefully you've enjoyed This Week in History. Stephen and I will be back next Tuesday to talk about another 7 days in the Rangers past. Hope you enjoyed tonight's programme. And until next week, from Stephen, from myself, bye for now.
Cheers.
The Four Lads Rangers podcast is proudly sponsored by Candid, LBJ Consultants, CBD Oil Scotland, Elite Scooters Scotland, and Metaclad, Four Lads' exclusive roofing partner. The Aesthetics Lounge by Sharon, Denhay, the quintessential British bacon. Thank you to all our sponsors, and in partnership with Black Rooster, Art of Gold, and Rangers Youth Development Company. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.